Okay, so this is the setup for the game as per the orders of battle cards and the deployment charts. So this is for the standard game. So you can see the Anglo-Allied forces set up on the ridge with Hougoumont, La Haye-Saône and Papelot garrisoned accordingly, and then you've got the French coming up the main road here from Rossomme, Plancenoit, and the main road, the Brussels road, coming up towards La Haye-Saône. On the flank here you've got the areas where the Prussians could arrive later in the game, Fichemont and La Haye as well. So before we're ready to start the game, we just have to get the cards organised. So you've got the Stratagem cards and the command cards, which I've separated out accordingly. These are in sleeves, so apologies for the glare. But you take the command cards, you're going to use all of them, and each turn you add one random stratagem card into the deck. So let's take one, pop that into the command cards, shuffle those all together, and then at the beginning of the game you will take three of those as the allied player. So I'll put those to one side for the moment. For the French, again you've got the command cards, and you will do exactly the same with the stratagem cards. So again, let's mix them up, take one out, add that to the command deck, shuffle those all up into no particular order, take three, pop them down there, and we are ready for the first turn of the game. So at this stage we would be rolling to see who's going to go first. So we'll use the Anglo-Allieds with white dice and the French with blue. They both come out the same, so that's no good. Okay, so we've got a 5 and a 3, a 5 for the Anglo-Allied, so they would get to choose whether they want to be player A and go first, or player B and go second. As they are very much on the defence, they will go second. So Napoleon gets to go first, and you can do one of four things in your turn. You can play a card out of your hand, out of the three that you've got. You can play the general attack counter, which allows you, when you've got units within the same zone of control, i.e. opposite each other, to launch attacks. So you want to use that very much at the appropriate time when you've got lots of combats ready to take place. You can replenish your card deck to 3 cards, drawing them from the command deck. So as you get lower, you can kind of add more into the mix there, or you can end your turn, which again you're trying to, if I just move that up slightly, you can see the turns at the top here. You're trying to survive as long as possible, certainly as the Anglo-Allied force. The French obviously are playing for time and want to try and knock them off the ridge before the Prussians arrive. So let's get on to the French turn and see what happens. Okay, so obviously this game is designed to be played 2 or 3 players. I'm playing it solo, so I'm going to take command of both sides, assuming I'm not sure what the other one is doing. So let's have a look at the French cards and see what we've got to play with there. So we've drawn the Napoleon, a stratagem, and Le Beau, 6 core. So this would allow you, in this case with Le Beau, to activate his 6 core, which, looking at the map, are these guys in reserve at the back here. Napoleon, you can place the counter on any hex in the board and activate all units that are in the 6 hexes around that. So that's a very, very useful card, because it gives you a lot of tactical flexibility. And the stratagem that we've already pulled out very, very early is the Injured Commander card. So point at a card in your opponent's hand, roll a dice. 1 to 3, no effect. On a 4 to 5, the card is used up. If it's a stratagem, it's permanently lost, while a commander card is simply discarded as if used for this turn. And on a 6, that card can't be used again for the rest of the game. So that's massive. Or you can activate 1 unit. So that's something I would definitely want to use. Whether I want to use it so early in the game, I may want to keep hold of that. But looking at all of those, really, I probably can only use the Napoleon card at the moment. It's a bit early, but I don't have a choice. So we pick up the Napoleon counter, as you can see there, and we decide where we are going to place him in relation to... Sorry, it's just gone out of focus again. Let's bring it a bit closer, maybe that will work a bit better. No, the camera's not playing ball. He is Napoleon, I assure you. So let's have a think what we want to do. So we probably want to try and get around the flank. We've got to be wary of the Prussians, but they're not going to arrive probably for 4 or 5 turns. So I think we're going to do something a little bit against history, and we're going to go for Papelotte and try and turn the right flank. So Napoleon is going to plant himself down in... Let's have a look. I think he's going to pop himself down there, and that means he can activate all units in or adjacent to that hex. So you'll see on the counters, if I bring one up for you, that they've got 2 numbers on them. So you can, again, apologise, the camera is, there we go, a 4 and a 2. So the 4 in the circle is the corps he belongs to, 2nd Infantry. The 4 and a 2 is telling you what their combat and movement factors are. So the one on the right is movement, which is 2. Oops, sorry. And the 4 is the number of dice they would roll in a combat situation. So we'll just pop him back down there. So let's have a think. I think we're just going to get straight into an infantry assault for the purposes of showing you how this works. Oops, I can't move that one, can I? I think we'll bring the cavalry around to the flank here. Bring these infantry over. I'll leave the artillery as a kind of screen, and we'll bring up these cavalry here as well. So that would be the French movement completed. So just to wrap up the French turn, the Napoleon card has now been discarded for the current turn. We've moved the units, and the 2nd Infantry here of the 1st Corps are now in effect engaged with Papelotte, but we'll need to decide when we're actually going to initiate the combat. So we're over to the Anglo-Allied side. Let's see what cards we've picked up here. Interestingly, they've picked up Wellington, so the big guns are coming out on both sides on the first part of the turn. The cavalry with Uxbridge and Hill. So Hill's corps, 2nd Corps, is quite small. They are over here on the British right flank. Uxbridge with the cavalry corps, he can move any or all cavalry corps. Most of the cavalry are here and at the back, so again probably at this stage we'd want to keep our powder dry. So I think for the Anglo-Allied we will use Wellington, and we will take a similar counter for Wellington, and we will place him where we want to use. Now what we could do is we could place him in a position where the artillery could fire, and I think that probably is quite sensible. The French actually could have fired in the French turn, but we're holding on that. We'll wait until the corps commanders get drawn to do that. So do we want to react to that? Do we want to react to the French movement this early on in the game? Do we want to already be using our artillery at this early stage? I think what we will do is activate maybe some of the troops around this flank just to add a little bit of meat into the defence. So let's put Wellington here, and I think what we're going to do is move this cavalry around the flank a little bit. Give the French something to think about, and I think we'll move the second off the ridge into La Haye to add some defence, and at this stage I think we'll leave it at that. So that's Wellington used, and now we move initiative over to the French. Okay, for the French turn I don't think there's any benefit in using either of these cards at the moment, so we are going to draw from the command deck to bring ourselves back up to 3 cards, and we've drawn Milord with the 4th Cavalry Corps. Just so you can see where they are. 4th Cavalry Corps. Let's have a look. Where are they? We've got 1 unit here and here, so actually they're in quite good positions in terms of the attack that we're trying to do over on that flank. And that is the French turn over, so we'll pass over to the Anglo-Allied, and likewise, as we said before, I don't think we want to be moving any of the 2nd or the Cavalry Corps at the moment, so the British forces will do exactly the same, and they will draw another command card as well. So we can see the British have now drawn a stratagem, the Emperor is unwell, which will allow them to use the card for the rest of a turn. When the Napoleon card is played, the French will roll a dice, and the result is the maximum number of units that can be activated by the Napoleon card, or you can activate a British unit. So we probably don't want to use that either at the moment, because Napoleon's already been played this turn, and we probably don't want to waste it activating a British unit either, because this will be very useful later on in the game. So the Anglo-Allied are going to be forced into making a manoeuvre with one of the other cards on their turn, but play moves over to the French, and I think at this stage it will be Milord, 4th Cavalry Corps. So let's find the command counter for him, and as we know, he's only got 2 cavalry divisions under his control. One is here and one is here, so if we put Milord down there, we can activate both units as we see fit. So with that in mind, we are allowed to move, I believe, through friendly units. That is allowed. You just can't. You've just got to make sure you end up in free hex at the end of your movement because you're not allowed to stack. So I think what we will do is move both units of cavalry over to the right flank. They've got a movement of 3, so terrain will probably have an effect going through Frischemont if we want to go that way. Let's have a look and see what impact that might have on any movement. I'm just going to have a quick look at the rules now. Okay, so it looks like the only effects on movement with terrain are woods or roads. Woods reducing movement, roads increasing movement, so there's no problem moving into Fishmorn. So I think we'll actually take that over there and that one over there. In fact, we'll move that one back, and what we've done then is protected the French flank accordingly. So that's the end of the French move. They've been used. Okay. So over to the Anglo Allies. Yeah, they've got a bit of a problem here. Now, they could potentially end the turn, but a lot of the units haven't activated yet, and that would give the French a lot of flexibility to bring forces forward without any reply. They probably don't want to initiate a main attack using the card yet, because they've only got one unit that would be doing that, and a garrison is very much a defensive unit. So really they've got to use Uxbridge or Hill. As I say, they don't want to use the stratagem. They're kind of hamstrung by that a little bit because they're going to have to hold on to it now for a long time. Let's have a look. So we've got Second Corps over here, predominantly in this area here. So they could move forward, or we've got Uxbridge with the cavalry corps, so that would allow us to activate all cavalry corps adjacent to his hex. Well, really you would be moving these chaps in this area here. But do we really want to be launching cavalry at this early stage? Probably not. So I think we're going to use Hill and bring him into the action. There he is. That's Hill. Let's put that one there. So we'll put Hill with the Second Corps. We'll pop him there. Then we can move both these units. And I think what we'll do, for the purposes of this, is we'll just bring them forward into a slightly more defensive posture to protect our flank there, and that's the British turn. Over to the French. I think at this stage we would probably draw another card. Let's do that. Okay, we've picked up Kellerman, again the cavalry commander, and of course for the Anglo-Allied forces they are probably going to want to do exactly the same thing. So let's pick up. Okay, so we picked up Orange, who First Corps. It's quite a big corps, lots of divisions, so we'll be able to use him next turn. Over to the French. So Kellerman's Third Corps are dotted around on the left flank here. Again, not really units I want to be utilising. I'm just going to kind of hold this area and not push forward too much. I've got some good units there that could be helpful to divert over to deal with the Prussian threat if needed later on. I think with that in mind, I think actually we might go for the Injured Commander Stratagem card and play it. We'll take pot luck. We don't know what the British have got, of course, although we do for the purposes of the video. So let's point add a random card in the British deck. Let's shuffle those up. Okay, let's pick a card and say we'll go for that one, whichever one it is. And a 1 to 3 no effect, 4 to 5 the card is used up. So let's roll a French dice. We got a 4. So that card has been used for this turn, and if it's stratagem, it's lost completely. So what have we got? Oh, the British won't like that. That is the stratagem, and that is now out of the game permanently. So that actually was quite an effective use of the stratagem cards for the French. Okay, let's pop that out of the game as well, because that has now been used. And we're now into the Anglo-Allied turn, which, yeah, that's a bit of a blow, bit of a setback, but nothing major. So let's have a little think about what we want to do next. I think for the Anglo-Allied, they are going to take another command card, and they've picked up the localized attack, rally to the colours card, which allows you to attack or bombard one enemy unit with all available friendly units, including artillery and support, or pick a damage unit and roll to rally. So that will be a useful card. We'll come back to that. Over to the French. I think they are going to use this opportunity to pick another card, and they've picked Nay. And again, Nay is very similar to Napoleon. He can be used anywhere, and he can activate up to 2 units adjacent to him. So, or he can choose a hex and activate all French cavalry units in or adjacent to that hex. So he's got a bit of flexibility. So that will be Nay for next turn. So, what do the Anglo-Allied troops want to do? Well, we could decide to attack or bombard, but at this stage that probably seems a little bit pointless. We want the French to get a bit closer, so I think what we will do actually is activate Uxbridge, and let's pop him down, and he can activate C cavalry. And let's have a look and see what options he's got. Okay, so Uxbridge is I think he's just going to move this cavalry unit for, again. I believe I can activate more than once because it's a different commander. And I think at this stage we'll bring the cavalry back after our little scout move forward in view of the weight of the French cavalry opposite us, and we'll bring him back onto the ridge to protect the flank there. So that's Uxbridge used for the purposes of that. Okay, over to the French. So we've got Kellerman with the 3rd cavalry over here, Lebeau in reserve. Or we can use Nay to activate cavalry or 2 French units. So I think with Nay, as we're continuing to push down that flank, I think we're going to put Nay here, which allows us to activate 2 units from the 3 in that area. I think we will stick another infantry unit forward to there, and this infantry unit into this gap here. So we're really kind of starting to heat up the pressure on the Anglo-Allied right flank. It's now the Anglo-Allied turn. Obviously they're going to have some concerns about the weight in numbers now moving down that flank. Maybe the orange needs to be activated to bring some reserves over there. or do we let the French blunt themselves on our built up areas and fortifications? We've got time to move up to the ridgeline afterwards. I think we'll draw another card. It's the last card. It's Delancey's Reserve Corps. And just for reference, Delancey has quite a big corps at the back here. R's, there's an R there as well, and there's some here. So this could be quite a useful activation in view of what's happening over here. The French playing for time because they know the British are running out of cards and they've still got plenty to go. So with Kellerman and Lebeau, they're going to draw another card, and they've got Doylon, First Corps, and of course these chaps here, all part of that corps. We'll be using them very soon, I'm sure. So I think the British are going to use Delancey. And we need to think about where we want to utilise the reserves from. I think at this stage these chaps are too far away to really do anything and can't get through because of space. So what we will do is maybe shift these chaps here along the ridge line to firm that up a little bit. But at this stage I think we want to keep our powder dry again in terms of coming off that ridge if we can help it. Over to the French. Again, I think the French are going to play it pretty cool at this stage, and they're going to activate Lebeau. Purely as a, where is Lebeau? He's 6 corps, so he's got most of these chaps in the centre here, a lot of cavalry, so I think we'll plant him there, and we're just going to try and keep this division as together as we can. So I think we'll move the guard light cavalry forward, and then we'll bring the infantry over towards Plancenoit to support this attack, but also to keep our flank protected in case our friend Mr. Blucher turns up at some point. So that's Lebeau done, and we're now over to the Anglo-Allied, who've got 2 cards left. Obviously they've still got the general attack counter, but they could try and get the first attack in there. Maybe they'll try a localized attack first. And I think what they might try and do actually is attack or bombard one enemy with all available friendly units. So if we're in bombardment range, we could try and do a bombardment from the horse artillery onto the 2nd infantry, try and soften that up. We'll reduce the impact of the attack going in here. I think that's what we're going to try and do. So we have our first contact, so to speak. Let's have a look at bombardment. Well, having had a look at the rules, and because these are horse artillery and their fire factor is only 2, because they would be 3 hexes away, they would -2 off their combat dice, which means they wouldn't have no effect. So we're probably better to keep our powder dry there and use them in a supportive role if we're able. So what we could do is, let's go back. Do we want to use that now, or do we activate orange? I think we're going to activate orange after all that. We may even pass on that other one, but let's get orange onto the board with the first corps. Sorry, I keep hitting the camera. So we've got units over on this right flank, but we've also got units in this area here, and obviously the main chappie there as well. He's already really where we want him to be. So I think in the spirit of trying to move up some more troops to that flank, we will move the 2nd Infantry along the ridgeline as well, and we will bring our cavalry, supportive cavalry, over onto that flank as well, which now shores that up nicely in terms of a French breakthrough. If these areas full, they're going to take hopefully some damage, and then they're going to blunt themselves on that ridgeline, which still looks strong. So a good turn, that one, I think, for the Anglo-Allied. French are going to take another card, and they've got Royale with 2 corps, which are primarily over here on the left flank. We might want to bring them closer together. We've got some artillery up here as well. And for the Anglo-Allied, they have to make a decision here. Do they want to attack? They could do, and artillery is out of reach to support them, so I think they're going to pass and end their turn. There is no benefit at this stage. So the French play out the remainder of the turn. They've still got 2 cards in the command deck, 3 cards in play. And they're going to use this opportunity, I think, to really get things up into position, ready to strike, and strike hard. So let's look at Royale with the 2nd Corps. I think at this stage we could use the artillery to try and break up some of this area here in support, or we could move troops up here. Because they're spread out, it actually makes it quite difficult at this stage to move more than 2 units anyway with the 2nd Corps. But that's what we're going to do. We're going to use 2nd Corps, and I think we are going to move the infantry up. So we'll pop them there, and I'm going to try and close them up a little bit. One, it protects the artillery here against any counter attack by cavalry, and it also means we're sort of closing up our units a little bit, although we've got some over here as well. But that's the French turn as far as that's concerned. We'll draw another card. Okay, so I think localized attack is a given, and we're going to launch our first attack here on Papelotte. Let's see how that works out. So we are going to attack with these 2 units, the 2nd Infantry and the 3rd Infantry on Papelotte. They have attack factors of 4 and 3, so the French start with 7 dice, and the enemy will roll 1 dice per point of combat strength as well. Now in this case it's garrison, which has its own rules. They have a combat strength of 1. If they suffer a retreat result, they're destroyed. But they are obviously in a built-up area, so that gives them some protection. So let's roll 7 French dice, 1 Anglo-Allied dice, and see what we get. Okay, so we are looking for fives or sixes. So we can see the Anglo-Allied roll a 1, so they've missed. The French have done quite well actually. They've actually got 4 possible hits at this stage. Now, because we are in a built-up area, I would expect there would be some benefit to that. In fact, that means that we would need 6s, so those 5s are discarded. So the French actually have 2 hits against the garrison. 2 hits is a damage and retreat, and because the garrison itself has a retreat result, it's destroyed. So the French have taken Papillotte, and I would expect that they would now move into there. Let's just have a quick look. Yeah, so we can move into there without worrying about the Ezox. We'll put our strongest unit in, who can then lend a hand with the next assault. So that's the localized attack complete for the French. Very successful, and the French are still in play. Let's see what they're going to do next. Okay, they've got 1 command card left, so they're going to take that. That's Daru with the guard. At this stage, don't really want to do much with them other than bring the guard artillery up, so I think we're going to get them moving. Actually, if we can get some of the other guard out of the way, then we can bring the artillery up the road, which gives them a slightly better movement. So the old guard will just move them slightly off the road, and the same with the middle guard, and then we can bring the artillery. They'll have a movement of 1-2 squares up there because they're on road. So that's Daru done. Still got the general attack counter for the French, and obviously they're looking at the right flank there and thinking about that, but they've got Durlon and Kellerman, so whilst that's all going on, I think we'll use Kellerman first. He's 3rd Cavalry Corps. I think we'll bring them very simply closer together. So that's Kellerman done, and then we've got Durlon with 1st Corps. So 1st Corps, we've got the artillery. Again, a little bit too far away to do any major damage at the moment. We've got infantry here with the cavalry, and obviously these chaps here, but we can use a general attack counter for that. So I think we will do the general attack before we activate Durlon, which allows us to conduct the attack here for this turn, and that's what we're now going to do. Okay, let's have a look at the modifiers. Okay, I don't think there are any modifiers from attacking from a built-up area, but of course we are attacking into a built-up area. So the French, again with a 4 and a 3 for the 2nd and the 1st infantry, will have 7 dice. And the British this time with the 2nd infantry, 2nd battalion or 2nd regiment, will have 3 dice. So the Anglo-Allies will need 5s and 6s, the French will need 6s. So we can see the Anglo-Allied, unfortunately, again have done nothing, and the French have rolled 2 6s. So let's put them out there. They did roll a 5, but that doesn't count. It's not a fortified zone, so there's no they're not special units, they're not fragile or elites, so it's 2 hits again, which is a damage and retreat. So for a damage and retreat, you would recoil or flip over onto the spent side, and then it will retreat accordingly. So I think it's safe to say he wants to retreat back as far as he can go. He must move into an adjacent hex that is free from enemy units and enemy zones of control. So he can only go back one square. Let's have a look and see where he can go to. I think he will go to the right, so he's got some support there from the cavalry units, and the French advance into La Haye as well. So they've done particularly well on this first turn, and are starting to push on the Allied left flank, the French right flank. They've got one unit left, which is Dolon, first corps. Let's have a look and see what he can do now. So at this stage, all the units have pushed. We could push forward more, but I think we need to consolidate a little bit. I think at this stage we will bring this cavalry and infantry forward into this position to link up the corps a little bit better and protect this gap that's appeared in the middle. So infantry can move 2 hexes, and cavalry in this case can move 4 hexes. So where do we want to put back to cavalry? I think, as much as I don't want light cavalry in the line, I'm going to bring them into that gap there just to keep that nice and secure. So that is the end of turn 1 of Quelle Affaire, Waterloo 1815, and we already get a feel for the mechanics, and French have had a pretty good turn, and both sides are fairly secure still, consolidated, but hopefully that's given you a really good flavour of how the main game works. What I'll do to finish off is just explain some of the other elements of the game when the Prussians might arrive, how they arrive, and any other little bits and pieces there that we haven't covered as yet, such as artillery fire and how that can be used. So for the Prussians, I'll just bring the camera over so you can see them all lined up alongside here. They've got their own set of cards, and as they come on, the command cards will be added into the Anglo-Allied deck, as will the stratagem options as well. And really this happens potentially from turn 5, with an increasing chance of various corps of the Prussian arriving over here on the French right, and you will roll a d6 to see from which area they come on, whether they come on opposite Plancenoir as they did historically, or directly to the left of the British flank there. So the British certainly will be really already wanting those Prussian reinforcements, and there's quite a lot of them. What it does very cleverly is twists the balance of the game from being weighted to the French in the early turns to weighted more to the Anglo-Allied in the later turns. So the French hence need to get moving quickly, and the Anglo-Allied are playing for time for the Prussians to arrive. So that's the Prussian dynamic, which could be used by another player or the same player, but it does add an interesting dynamic into the game. So that's the Prussians. Artillery. So we touched on artillery during the game. Artillery have the same factors, movement and combat factors. They can be limbered or unlimbered. If you limber them up, you would use one of these counters. And in fact, I think I should have done that when I moved the guard artillery earlier. So apologies for that. Likewise, when they're fired, you would put a smoke counter on, because they can only fire once in a turn. But they can fire in 3 different ways. They can fire as a tactical bombardment up to 3 squares away, but they get reducing combat strengths as we touched on, which can make them ineffective. Or they can fire in support of an attack or in support of a defence, again as long as they're in range of the unit that is attacking or defending. So they again play a really important part in lending support to attacks and defences, and I think generally speaking I've used it more that way than I have as a tactical bombardment. Probably the French have more ability to do that with their weight of artillery, but yeah, some useful extra dynamics and mechanics in the game there from that point of view. So hopefully that's given you a really good flavour of the game. As I say, I think it's a really underrated game. It's really cheap to buy. As you can see, it's a lovely board, really well produced, great components, nice big counters. The card mechanic, command and colours feel, I think I like in effect it gives you a chip pool system. You never quite know which commands you're going to be activating when. You never quite can do what you want to do, and even when you can activate your core, if you've advanced too far out of position, you may find only part of your troops can actually activate. So it's a really good game with a lot of hidden depth, but it's also very simple to pick up and play. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. This is Quelle Affaire Waterloo by River Horse Games, and look forward to seeing you again next time.